Who's next?
Everyone was saying that dude, what's the guy's name with Beckerman should have played. And what I saw in the other games, he looked really good.
Yeah, I loved Beckerman.
But I haven't really seen him enough to really gauge appropriately. And I don't know. Everyone's saying Josie would have been great, but I've never really seen him perform. But
He uh,
that's
he
just me.
he was the key to our offense. When he went down, Michael Bradley was sort of out of position,
Yeah.
and he
And
struggled.
so was Clint Dempsey.
Yeah,
We don't play Clint Dempsey as the lone striker up top, whereas in the Belgium game, as Matt Doyle called it, a 4-6-0. Yeah, it completely changed our strategy, especially, and that's when you go back and you look at Klinsmann and you look at the complaints about roster selection before the Cup, and of course,
Johnson.
hindsight is 2020, but
yeah. That's
to be
that's
able,
that's the one thing he messed up on is bringing in Timmy Chandler and not bringing in Eddie Johnson or Terrence Boyd.
absolutely,
Eddie
absolutely.
Johnson is Eddie Johnson still playing?
Yeah, he was supposed to go to the World Cup.
He was a major part of our qualification team. So basically he went and floundered in England, and the Sounders took a risk on him and paid him very little his first couple of years because he was, kind of a risk. He was not playing that well. So he comes back to MLS after, he was the golden child with Sporting Kansas City, or the Wizards back then, and goes to England, has a bad time of it, comes back, Sounders take a risk. He looks great for a couple of years, and he is a major part of the 2013 qualification scheme. Scored some big game winners against good teams, and
Scored
just
the
looked
winner
like,
against Mexico. Scored the
yeah,
2-0 goal against Panama. A beautiful goal, by the way.
yeah.
And,
He was right in it, and when the roster was announced, he wasn't even in the 30, much less the 23, and it was a big surprise. Now, he made a poor decision and went to a team that didn't have
hey.
the whoa, I'm getting there. Went to a team that didn't have the formation or tactics or service to keep playing him the way that he had played in Seattle.
Yeah.
They left him on an island instead of allowing him to have. They didn't. I don't know.
The point
We don't
is,
need to get into it.
he struggled at my DC United this year and was left off. And
He made a
it made me sad.
to leave a
To get
playoff
paid.
team. Yeah, to leave a playoff team
To go to another playoff team.
Well, this year they weren't a playoff team when he moved.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
They were a trophy-winning team though.
They did win some hardware.
They won more.
Yes.
The team that he went to won more trophies in 2013 than the team that he left.
That's 100% accurate. That's 100% accurate.
All right,
But
so
so
Dino.
he fell out of favor with Klinsmann, and all of a sudden wasn't on the team. And no one knows why we didn't take Terrence Boyd. But what it comes down to is that we don't have a replacement for Josie, and neither of those guys are a true like for like. They don't have all the same skill set, but we don't have a big target forward that can do anything like that. So instead, we put Dempsey up there and left him by himself and let him try to create magic, who's much better as a withdrawn forward or even a center attacking mid. And
That's how Seattle uses him pretty much.
Absolutely.
And it works out great.
Yeah.
They put him. I mean, basically the notion was, and it was gonna work, was that they were gonna use Bradley as Bradley's being used in Toronto, which is behind Jermaine Defoe and Gilberto, and they were gonna use Dempsey as Seattle uses him, which is supporting Oba Martins. Both of Defoe and Martins are sort of like for likes for Josie, and they're gonna use Josie at the very top, and that was gonna work great. It worked great against Nigeria, and then Josie played 20 minutes of the World Cup, and then he went down. We had no one for him. Okay, so Dempsey, Howard, Yedlin, Beckerman, your fifth guy that impressed the Dutchman.
Michael Bradley, he actually played in Holland for a while too.
He did.
And generally, he was pretty strong as like a holding midfielder.
Now that's interesting. Because
that is
a lot of and this is why I wanted you on, because I figured your opinions would differ from those who watch American soccer a lot and get disillusioned for bad reasons. I thought Bradley played well against Portugal, and then I came home and looked on RMLS, and everyone was eviscerating him, and I did not understand why. Well, I did, because he missed a really open
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't like really a clinical finisher by any means, but yeah,
Wasn't his
I
job.
mean, honestly, he's not supposed to be.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
not supposed to be a clinical finisher. I feel like we put him into a couple of different roles and were disappointed that he didn't do both of them simultaneously. Like he got trashed on for not being creative enough, and then he got trashed on for not being defensive enough, and it's tough. Like, I fully agree with the idea that he played better than the general reaction. I think he had some poor moments in all of the games. I think the Belgium game was actually his best game.
Yeah,
Um,
by far.
you
I
know,
mean,
for
he's the one who created the green goal.
take that away, still his best game.
Yeah.
Yeah, take
He
away the
also-
goal. The first 90 minutes before we even go into extra time, it's still his best game, and we're getting outworked the whole time. But yeah, he didn't have a breakout performance. He certainly wasn't. I wouldn't put him in my top 5, which it is good to hear, that bias. But I wouldn't put him in the bottom 5 either.
Yeah.
I think he was just fine. I think he was doing everything that was asked of him. I still will point to tactics and substitutions and formations as a much larger role in where we ended up than any one individual performance that's not named Chris Wondolowski.
Now, Daniel, I'm optimistic.
Steve,
I'm an optimistic person by heart. You know that.
generally. Yeah,
And I take a lot of positives from this World Cup. Should I?
totally. Yeah, we made it through the group of death. I thought that in itself was an achievement. And that Portugal game too was a really impressive display.
Yeah.
Just the fact that we were so close to winning, and I still really can't believe that we didn't even. So, I mean,
It is kind of crazy to think like
America never does that. America, okay.
Yeah, it's usually
We usually are the ones who score at the end, not the other team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my God, we scored and we drew against that team at the very end. Like,
Yeah.
to be beating Portugal in extra time, and yeah, I mean, yeah, man, that's awesome. It sucks it didn't go down the way that it did, but I mean, I'd say the same. Ian and I are both in very similar fragile emotional states. It's been just over 24 hours.
I got a lot of my tears out yesterday when I drank some red wine and talked to Kelsey too, and watched the Office finale. And
You light some candles and have a bath and
yeah, it's
it was at that point that I switched from like being sad for myself to being sad for Chris Wondolowski. I was just, and I texted you, Daniel, last night. I was like, I've been an MLS fan for years. I've watched Wondolowski his entire career. He and Beckerman totally deserved these opportunities, and they made the most of them, and they both deserve to be the World Cup, and they both played pretty well. And I'm gutted for Wando because he's such a great guy. He's one of my favorite good guys in MLS, even if he plays for like a bad boy team or whatever. That's not his fault. But
he's
plays
the only
well
guy who's not. He's the only guy on that team who's not.
Well, I like John Bush too. I think he's a pretty nice guy too. But and it was just to know that he's gonna think about that basically for the rest of his life.
I mean, look, let's be honest. That situation is why he was on the plane.
Yes.
He was on the plane because 99 times he scores that goal. That's who Chris Wondolowski is. He's a poacher. He's a guy who somehow is magically in the right place at the right time on side, and that's who he is. We put him on the plane because of his ability to constantly do that, because we knew if we needed a goal, we were going to put him out there, probably with Josie, probably pull Clint Dempsey or somebody else, put him out there with Josie, let Josie be the guy up top, and let him just get a garbage goal in garbage time. And for him to miss it is just heartbreaking. And it actually
I've seen him score that goal so many times for San Jose.
So many times. He scored that goal against my team so many times.
And it's heartbreaking because it's just because you love seeing those MLS moments being played out at the World Cup.
Totally.
And that was what was happening, and it just And by the way, the person who created that chance, I'm surprised we haven't talked about him yet. Jermaine Jones just had the single. Yeah. Oh my goodness! I did not realize he could play that well.
If we had gone after Daniel had finished up, if we had gone for our own top 5, Jermaine Jones was the number 1 list on my list. He's the man.
Yeah, he's a beast.
I mean, we have 2 different players play through broken noses.
Oh yeah.
The breathing alone, the breathing.
Neither of them use masks.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Ignore the pain. Ignore the pain from just it getting brushed, but the breathing situation alone with a broken nose as a professional athlete running around in jungle weather is insane.
Yeah.
And then when Dempsey does it, and then he does the extra badass thing of scoring with his crotch.
Yeah, that's what they said in the bar where I was watching it. Dempsey scored with his dick. That's the most American thing ever.
He fucked that goal. That's what he did. He fucked that ball into that net, and we should have won that goddamn game. That was the greatest storyline ever.
Yeah.
Cool. And created on an amazing run into the box with a sweet cross by DeAndre
Edlin. Yeah. I know I'm glad we're doing this because I feel so much better about our team.
Oh yeah, man. I honestly and this we'll see how Daniel reacts to this. I legitimately believe that we could make the semis in 2018, and if we host in 2022, I think we can win it. I think the bump we get from being the host and 8 years of development and where we are as a nation and the way that this country is going for this sport, I legitimately think we could have a shot at being in the final in 2022.
Because you have to realize, our development academies are just now getting to the point where they need to be to pump out legitimate talent like DeAndre Edlin and Josie Altidore. Who's like either a couple months older or younger than me. I don't remember which. And Matt Beasler and Jeff Cameron and Omar Gonzalez and all those guys. That's the first wave. The next wave
the kids that are 16 right now, the ones that are in high school that are getting picked up for the academies, they've been playing not high school ball. They've been playing, select ball, and they've been playing in good teams. But they're going to be 24 in 8 years, and those guys are going to be the ones that are going to be the future. And so again, that goes back to the how do we handle our situation in this league?
Yeah, and especially because you have to consider that the TV deal next year is humongous, and so MLS has a lot of hypothetical money to play with. And the CBA, they better fucking figure out the CBA so we don't miss any time next year. That would make me really mad.
Furious. As a hockey fan, I cannot handle a lockout in soccer. I can't handle that.
And that would destroy all the momentum instantly.
Totally.
And
I don't know what these things are, but they sound serious.
Okay, so basically what happens, and it's good that you asked this because I'm sure there are a lot of other people out there who have there are a lot of newbies. There are like 4,000 new RMLS subscribers in the last month.
There's a huge bump. Huge.
Now we're approaching 25,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what Ian's talking about is the collective bargaining agreement. It is the agreement between the players and the league and the owners of pretty much everything: contract rights, salary agreements, salary caps, and it's really all to do with the financials and the contracts. And what keeps happening in America is they will hold each other hostage where this 5 or 7 or 8 year deal that's in place, in the year that it expires, instead of just getting together and negotiating well ahead of time, they keep trying to be the stronger position.
And usually it's the owners who are trying to get more out of the revenue pie It happened in the NFL. It happened big time in the NBA because the NBA Players Union was kind of shitty, and it happened in the NHL a couple of times once they lost an entire season. And the only reason I came back to the NHL is because my team won the Stanley Cup the very next season, and it's
Okay.
It's something for all y'all out there to pay attention to, and hopefully they get that figured out because the TV deal is awesome. The World Cup boost to attendance is going to happen next year. We're getting 2 new great teams.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that the MLS is at a place where teams can be created, too. Like that's something that doesn't really happen in leagues in Europe anymore, as far as I know.
Yeah, we've got there are so many.
It's kind of interesting.
There are so many areas out there that need a soccer team. They don't have one yet, and a lot of them are starting little. Like Nashville, there's a place in Michigan, or Detroit even. They're starting at the very, very low end, like 4th or 5th division, like it happens in England and all those places in Europe. There's been an interesting development the last couple of years where there's like crowdfunded teams, like has happened in Nashville and Grand Rapids, and I think there's a place in Florida now that's also doing it. And there's just teams popping up all over the place to fill all these little holes in the map that still exist. And there's 19 MLS teams, and there's like 10 NASL teams. That's the second division, and there's like going to be, as of next year, 20 third division teams, and those are all the pro teams. And then there's still even little places here, there, everywhere that need to get filled in. Greensboro, Gate City FC started this year, and it looks like they're doing pretty well.
Huh.
They look nice. I'm gonna go watch them once or twice once I move back in a couple weeks.
See, that's what you have to remember as a European fan, is that this country is so much bigger and more populated than anybody in Europe, you know. So instead of having those tiny teams playing in the same league, you know, like you talked about as Ajax, but instead of having that, you have, you know,